This is an audio recording submission and is meant to be reviewed as an audio file. First story, the story of making my own way. Some years ago, a friend of mine managed to get me an informational meeting with the head of a performing arts center which presents well-known U.S. dance companies. And there was one comment from that conversation that I always remember. He said, "Perhaps for you, you are going to have to make your own way." And that stuck with me. Because if I make my own way, I can bring whomever I want with me. I can bring all the Indigenous and POC performers and collaborators who may not be aware of or have access to well-funded and safe performance venues. I can bring people who are amazingly talented but do not write well or speak the Queen's English. I can bring people who are experts in our culture but have no degrees. I can bring my people with me wherever I go. And in that same conversation I mentioned, he spoke about the series of theaters or festivals I needed to be at for certain people and organizations to see me, to approve me, and hopefully book me, so that in turn I could perform at the right places, which were fashionable, well known in the dance field. In short, the places where if you performed there, you were considered to have made it. Mid-conversation, I remember thinking, the majority of my community will never have the ability to come to these places, nor do they even know they exist. And while I was grateful for the solid career trajectory advice, I began wondering if success meant that I needed to prioritize the audiences at the important venues more than people in less fashionable regions of the country. I wondered if success meant that I should concentrate on performing in front of dance audiences that already had the means to buy tickets, rather than people in my own communities who may never have seen contemporary Indigenous dance, let alone any live dance. While I hoped, and I still hope, my work might be presented at the places that are renowned and respected by the greater concert dance field, I realized that in order to be true to my values, part of success meant to me that my work needed to be accessible to my community, to the broader regular people community, regardless if they were theater people or not, regardless of whether or not they had the disposable income to purchase tickets. So what drives me and what makes this practice essential to my community are intertwined. If I make my own way, not only can I bring my people with me, I can bring my work wherever it needs to be. Second story, Si Aniwoni, They Are Still Talking, the 2022 performance iteration. The title, Si Aniwoni, They Are Still Talking, comes from these ideas. Long before we were born, our ancestors' prayers willed us into existence. As we speak, the air that travels through our bodies carries their essence. Despite the silencing of our voices due to colonization, Christianity, and lateral violence, they are still talking. With our combined voices, we are creating the stories of the future. My collaborator on this project is Ahyoka Youngdeer, a Cherokee Lifeways consultant and LGBTQ+ community organizer. We took these ideas and developed Si Aniwoni into a performance and community residency, exploring ancestral messages through the lens of Cherokee language and traditional teachings about Two-Spirit people and women. The performances feature dance, live Cherokee language narration, and larger-than-life projections of Two-Spirit and women ancestors from both of our families. The residency activities are determined in collaboration with the host community and have included dance workshops, talking circles, storytelling, language classes, and class visits. Now, something you should know about Ahyoka. In addition to being a frequent professional collaborator of mine, she is a dear sister friend, a trans woman, and a culture bearer. She is the youngest fluent Cherokee language speaker whose first language was Cherokee. She was trained in traditional ways, specifically related to her role as a trans woman within the context of pre-Christian, pre-European invasion lifeways. But despite all of her knowledge and her unique viewpoints, because of bigotry and prejudices created through foreign colonial mindset and religions, she has had to fight for her right to exist and for her right to speak, unfortunately, even within many Cherokee spaces. In my biography, I talk about uplifting Indigenous cultural values and perpetuating ancestral knowledge. Well, I do not mean that only in a philosophical sense. That also means active promotion. The act of making space for our Cherokee people who have been and are being silenced and oppressed due to colonial paradigms. For people like Ahyoka, who are not fully allowed to exist in places like the state of Oklahoma, and who may not fully be allowed to share and express themselves in our communities. I recognize her value and worth to our community and to the world. I recognize that she has knowledge and viewpoints that no one else has. Part of the reason for creating Si Aniwoni, They Are Still Talking, was to create an artistic vessel to showcase and create space for Ahyoka, her knowledge, and her existence. A literal safe space where she could shine without fear. In doing so, it creates a safe space for others in similar situations, and even those who identify with being silenced and devalued. Third story, The Wind Project, 2025 iteration. Less than a month ago, we presented an in-progress showing of Wind, a multimedia indigenous performance project led by myself, Amado Espinosa, Quechua, and Yurasapi, Quichua. The project was based in these ideas. Wind is still untamed. It is wild and forever invisible. It is fast and carries words and sounds and prayers throughout the whole world. It is ever present in the form of air. Without it, we are dead in a matter of minutes, and yet we cannot see it. Wind in the form of a tornado can destroy an entire house, yet leave a cabinet full of delicate ceramics untouched. It caresses our skin, and it brings down trees. It is magic. In addition to an international indigenous creative residency, we had 2 events for the Wind Project, a workshop for the local Native community held at the Kansas City Indian Center, and a public performance. After the workshop, people thanked us. They loved the dance, they loved the art making, they loved all of the activities. But what struck me was the continued comment, "Thank you for bringing us together." And while I was watching folks interact at the workshop, I overheard people catching up on family news. I overheard people connecting over shared medical conditions neither knew the other had. I heard someone say, "I haven't seen you for so long. My baby is having their first birthday next week. I want you to come." Connecting. And many of the people from the workshop also came to the performance. We were lucky to have an audience that was predominantly Native, members of the Kansas City Indian Center, and indigenous folks from the Andes region in South America who had recently moved to the area. After the show, a colleague of mine did a series of interviews with the audience. Once again, many comments about the artistic elements of the show, what they loved, what was beautiful, but they also said the performance made them think. Made them think about how we share the wind and the same air across the entire world. How what we are doing with our air affects someone all the way in China. Someone else said they just realized how important it was to be united as humans and to let our care flow across all lands like the wind, not beholden to man-made borders. One person said it made her realize how vital the wind and air is and how important it is for us to take care of it, not just for ourselves, but for everyone. The change is embedded in the activities around the work, the performance itself, and the gathering. Performance, both witnessing and doing, creates new thoughts. A change within the mind, which in turn affects actions, which in turn affects how a person behaves in the world, and in turn everyone they interact with. Inspiration is contagious. Last story, ripples. How does one sustain the change? How do I sustain the change and continue? Well, I do not. We do. It happens by listening, by working together with other indigenous artists and culture bearers and community members, by connecting people with themselves and to one another, by continuing to make new work and carrying out new iterations of existing work in new settings or in deeper ways. Last week, I was babysitting my niece in North Carolina, and we went walking in the woods. She wanted to stop at the creek and skip rocks, which turned into throwing rocks into the water and seeing who could make more ripples and whose ripples reached farther. We tried big rocks and little rocks and flat rocks and fat rocks. No one exactly won. That is, until we both threw our rocks together. We didn't double the amount of ripples. We tripled them, maybe even quadrupled them. And the ripples reached farther than any of our individual rock ripples did. Throwing our rocks together, those ripples reached all the way to the bank. So that is the way of things. multiple rocks, multiple projects, collaboration with others, doing work that is aligned, working together for the good of us all.